Hey guys, it's the Mellowblade 5, and back in the dark times of me barely seeing anime, most of the anime that I'd watched at that point in time were either based on a video game or was Yu-Gi-Oh! However, during this period, although very briefly before making my former New Year's resolution to watch more anime, there was one anime that I did see a small amount of that didn't fall into these categories. That was No Game No Life. I mentioned this series several times in the past when talking about what anime I had seen before this magical journey, and how at the time I'd only watched half of the first episode, but as part of my previously declared resolution, No Game No Life was the first thing I watched in relation to that. So now I have seen the whole series, and when wanting to make videos talking about My Hero Academia and Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains, I thought, I might as well talk about this as well, seeing as how I did enjoy it in addition to not seeing many people talk about it, which makes me think this series is a bit of a hidden gem. So just like what I talked about in my other instances of discussing No Game No Life, I had an odd introduction to the series. One day while I was on YouTube, I randomly came across a video that was a remix of the Corner theme from Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney. I watched it because I'm a big fan of the Corner themes in Ace Attorney, and I also really enjoyed the remix. I even gave it a like, so if you were to go into my liked videos playlist and scroll through over 1,000 random videos, you'll find it. But at the time, I thought that it was a fan-made remix, and that the character in the video was just the YouTuber's avatar. Then I saw the videos in the sidebar on a repeat viewing, and found out that the music track was actually from an anime, with an entire scene referencing Ace Attorney. This made me think that this was an anime about video games, as in another world that revolved around video games and video game references. Which, in hindsight, I was wrong about, but that belief made me really interested in watching it. I hadn't heard of anyone mentioning it at the time, unlike a lot of anime like Dragon Ball, where I hear things about it all over the place despite not watching it, but I still really wanted to see it. So unlike most other anime I've watched now, my decision to watch No Game No Life had nothing to do with word of mouth, and this led me to watching the first episode. So like with every anime I've covered so far, very shortly into the first episode, I get introduced to the protagonist, or protagonists in this case. The Hikikomori step-siblings Sora and Shiro. They're hardcore gamers to the extreme, and, well, having gamers as the protagonists not only made me follow my belief of this series being just about video games even stronger, and made me relate to them right off the bat. Granted, I don't stay inside anywhere near as much as they do, and I'm not agoraphobic, but the big factor that got me into games in the first place was escapism. And I like how Sora, Shiro, and the overarching theme of the series highlights that. Plus, the two of them are very cute together, with how they interact and the need for them to always be near each other. But a lot more of what I like about Sora and Shiro came up as I watched later parts of the series, so I'll save those for then. However, one thing I did think immediately when watching the first episode is that Shiro is honestly the most adorable character I have ever seen, because of both her appearance and voice. Upon Sora and Shiro defeating the childlike god Tet, in which I still can't grasp the concept of this kid being a god, in a game of chess, they are transported to the world of Disboard, where, I gotta say, I really like the art style in this series. Upon Sora and Shiro entering Disboard, everything becomes so bright, vibrant, and colorful, so it's always visually pleasing for me to look at, as well as making the animation pop out more from a lot of other anime I've seen from short clips or stills. I can't say much about this without being repetitive, so I'll let the video speak for that. But more importantly, in Disboard, everything is decided by games. This is where I realized that I was wrong about the series being about video games. It's about games in general, and I think the idea of Disboard and the way it works is so creative. There's no violence or war because it is magically prevented, and thus all conflicts need to be resolved through games with placed bets. It provides an interesting in-universe explanation as to why games play a pivotal role, and the whole betting requirement still manages to keep the conflicts intense, as Sora and Shiro typically make really serious or risky bets that would have dire consequences if they were to ever actually lose. My thoughts on this are also shared with the fact that a lot of the opponents in the series cheat to try to gain an unfair advantage, as they can get away with it if they aren't caught, further raising the intensity of the games. I saw all of this in action immediately when Sora challenged this random chick to poker. Sora bets his and Shiro's lives, the woman cheats, but Sora wins anyway. Granted, he also cheated, but I thought since she was cheating already, it was fair. Now, this was the point in the first episode where I stopped watching. Not because I wasn't enjoying it, since I really got into the idea of Discord. I think I got distracted by something else at the time, and then I just forgot to go back and watch. Then when I did remember, I thought that I would have to do a lot of catching up. But about 2.5 years later, in 2017, I just happened to remember that I made a New Year's resolution to watch more anime, and No Game No Life was one of the first things that came to my mind, as I had already briefly mentioned it several times in older videos. I looked it up on Wikipedia and found that the series was only 12 episodes long, and I said to myself, wow, this is actually a pretty short series. There was no need for me to watch tons of episodes to catch up. So in late June, early July time, I watched the rest of the series from that point on YouTube. Yeah, I hate myself for doing that. I did it initially, but between then and now, I much prefer to watch anime on official websites like Crunchyroll so that I can actually support the series. But I didn't have any other way of watching it. Well, that's what I thought until not too long ago when I found out that it was on Crunchyroll the whole time, so I feel like a dumbass now. Additionally, because I ended up watching the series on YouTube, I could only find the episodes dubbed. So I watched half of the first episode in Japanese and the rest in English. And now the comments section is going to turn into a subs versus dubs debate. But if I give my quick thoughts on the dub, just from the voices and performances without comparing it to the subs, I really liked it. So, continuing on from where I was, I saw further evidence of how serious the Bang and Disboards games can be, as they're using a tournament to decide who will become the next ruler of the Kingdom of Elkia, making me more interested to see what kind of stakes will appear in later episodes, where the bitchy player Kurumi defeats the former king's granddaughter, Stephanie Dola, and the episode ends with Steph confronting Sora in just a towel. Now, Steph... she's a complete Steph. She's a huge klutz as she constantly loses games no matter how hard she tries, but out of all the characters, she's the one with the most common sense. So this leads to a lot of interactions between her, Sora, and Shiro that I find really funny. Like with all the shit that Sora and Shiro put her through, and most of all, Sora making her fall in love with him after beating her, which she tries to fight against. Plus, I do like her own character arc of wanting to restore her grandfather's honor and how it pays off in the end. I thought that he was an idiot for constantly losing Elkia's land, but it turned out that it was all some crazy plan to gain knowledge on the climactic game, which made me think, this guy was actually kinda smart. So with Steph's help, Sora and Shiro gain their new dapper looks, confront Kurumi when she's about to be crowned the new ruler, reveal her cheating with Phil, and it happens. The Ace Attorney reference. Of course I love the reference, and how much the scene actually reflects an Ace Attorney revelation, but this also ends up leading to another thing I like about Sora and Shiro. Due to their otaku lifestyle, they make a lot of references to games and anime. Even though I'm not an otaku, I can relate to their pop culture love. I mean, there are JoJo references, there's a Yu-Gi-Oh reference, and many more. So Sora and Shiro challenged Kurumi to a game of chess with Elkia's throne on the betting table, and I thought, alright, I actually like chess, so this could be fun. But then I saw that this wasn't any ordinary game of chess. Shiro plays it like a normal game, but the pieces don't obey her commands and she starts to cry. Ow, my heart. It hurts. That's because in this version of chess, the pieces are basically sentient beings with morale. So Sora takes over, and it becomes the most epic and hilarious game of chess ever. Kurumi uses her magic to gain an advantage, but Sora promises the pieces that they can bang any woman that they like if they win. He flirts with Kurumi's queen to get her to change sides, and most importantly, they are motivated by the power of cuteness. Yes! Even they acknowledge how cute Shiro is. This all relates to a big factor that I like about the series. On top of having some really unique game ideas later on, they also add some twists to otherwise standard games to make things more interesting. While it was pretty obvious to me that Sora and Shiro were going to win because blank never loses a game, the entertainment factor comes from seeing how they win, despite the odds, rather than knowing if they'll win or not. This is the most fun and only time I've ever laughed while watching chess. Even the aftermath is funny as Kurumi comedically bursts into tears, making me think that she's not as bitchy or serious as I previously thought. Whoa, random upskirt shots. Yeah, I couldn't find a good segue to talk about this, but the main criticism of this series is that Shiro is sexualized at times. I can understand why this would put off a lot of people, and I'm not really defending it because I do think that fan service involving an 11-year-old girl is dumb. I think Shiro is adorable, but I'm not sexually attracted to her. But it didn't really bother me since it's very discreet. It mostly consists of nika shots during moments where realistically it would make sense to see up a girl's skirt, and during the bath scenes, Shiro is covered up for the most part, while the other female characters are more revealed. There was one time where I think they went too far, and I'll bring that up when I get to it, but it's something that I could easily look past. So since Sora and Shiro beat Kurumi, they become the collective king of Elkia. They specifically say king, which doesn't make much sense to me, and they do what any great leader does: wage war on the rest of the world and defeat Tet once again. Yeah! Show them what humanity, or immanity, is capable of. And it's all part of a perfectly calculated plan because Sora and Shiro are insanely intelligent. As Sora and Shiro are putting Steph through a day of humiliation, Sora's sights become set on the Eastern Federation populated by war beasts, who, when I first heard the name of, I thought would be like a werewolf or something, as they are actually cute animal girls. Sora is doing exactly what I would do if I ended up in an anime parallel dimension. Go for the hot chicks! Well, I'm not really attracted to animal girls, but same principles. A man's gotta have sexual needs. In order to plan their attack, they need access to the library, which is under the control of a flugel named Jabril, whom Sora and Shiro challenge for ownership. Jabril is easily one of my favorite characters. I love her super over-the-top and ridiculous reactions to pretty much everything, especially those related to gaining knowledge and the somewhat erotic acts that Sora performs on her, which doesn't bother her at all. Now this is my kind of woman. Additionally, I find her interactions with the other characters, particularly Steph, due to being feeble in manatee, to be very entertaining as she has this accidentally condescending attitude in the way she speaks as a result of her race being considered a higher being to most others. So Sora, Shiro, and Jabril play a word game known as Shiritori, but the words physically materialize. Sometimes. Some of the words make that respective object appear, and some make them disappear. I don't know what the trigger was, so I was a bit confused when watching. Maybe they did explain and I just didn't catch it. Regardless, this leads to a ridiculous set of events where Sora and Shiro destroy the whole world along with the air so that Jabril can't say any more words, making her lose and become their servant. Like with chess, they take another game that's not the most exciting in the world, but made it really funny and epic, as well as sexy in this case, except for Shiro being naked. This is the part where I think they went too far with Shiro's sexualization, since I don't care if it's like Berserk and there's no nipples, I'm still looking at a naked 11-year-old. Anyway, with access to the library, it's time to plan the conquest of the Animal Girl Kingdom, as it shall forever be known as to me. Although, what this specific episode really did for me was give me a far greater insight into Sora's character. Initially, he says some horrible things to Steph about her grandfather, where I thought, what the fuck, dude? But then he later goes on about how he believes in humanity's potential, despite thinking they're stupid, and uses his powers of deduction to prove that Steph's grandfather wasn't a fool in relation to his plan that I brought up earlier. It showed that while Sora is kind of an asshole, which is likely due to him being a shut-in, he's still kind. He's just a bit lacking in empathy. Also, this episode had a moment that really made me laugh when it's initially believed that the former king's key is for his porn. With the former king's knowledge, Sora and Shiro challenge the Animal Girl Kingdom, where they have this really cool scene in which they deduct that the War Beast's mysterious game is a frickin' video game, how they keep managing to win and showing that their mind control is a load of bollocks. Again, like Ace Attorney. And then use that to force them to accept the challenge by betting in Manatee's chess piece. 'Cause Sora and Shiro are goddamn mavericks. So across the series to this point, I've been caught off guard by Sora and Shiro's intelligence so many times that I thought that they couldn't surprise me anymore. I was wrong, because not only does betting the chess piece play another large part in their plan, it leads to what I like to call the mindfuck episode. At the end of episode 8, there's the scene where Sora tells Shiro that they're always one, but the colors start glitching out. Then he walks away and disappears, and then Shiro's upset because Sora's not around, and Steph and Jabril have no idea who he is. Sora appears to have been completely erased from existence. There's no sign of his presence, and Steph and Jabril say that all the shit that happened before was done by Shiro on her own. I was so confused and freaking out at this point. The colors started going all gray as well, which didn't help, along with the pain in my heart of seeing Shiro so sad. Partway through the episode, I honestly thought that they were going to do this insane twist and reveal that Sora never existed to begin with. Like, he was just a figment of Shiro's imagination or something, and that the entire series up to this point had been a lie. I was so clueless as to what was going on. Even when the episode slowly pieces together what actually happened, I was still second-guessing myself. Sora is actually playing some game of checkers with Kurumi, where each piece represents their existence, and thus wipes them away when flipped as if this is some Doki Doki Literature Club shit. Shiro has to take over for Sora and wins the game, making him return to existence, along with Kurumi gaining his memories and thus joining them alongside Phil. I thought initially that Kurumi and Phil would be like a Jesse and James duo, so it pleasantly surprised me that they become allies instead. It made me like them more than I did previously, as I also got to see more of the comedic sides of their personalities rather than them just being bitchy. I mean, Phil teases Kurumi over her constant crying, and Kurumi has the typical flat chest anime girl trait of wanting big boobies. I hear that Kurumi and Phil are supposed to have, like, this mother-daughter relationship, which I did get from their backstory, but more often than not, I kinda got a lesbian couple vibe from their interactions, and I wouldn't have any problem if that was the intended direction. Plus, on the subject of couples, based on Mother's Basement's video, I hear that Shiro apparently has a crush on Sora? Now, maybe this is highlighted more in the light novels and Japanese version, but I never got that impression. I just saw Sora and Shiro's relationship as a close brother-sister bond, especially since they're all they have, rather than anything romantic. I bring this up here because Shiro's reaction to when Sora gets brought back is the only time I saw anything remotely romantic between the two, but I still primarily saw it as a sister being really happy to see her brother again. I guess it's not exactly incest as they're step-siblings, but I hope that's not the direction they go in. Also, oh my god, young Shiro. It's too kawaii! I swear I'm not a pedophile. So now I reached the climax of the series, with Sora and Shiro playing the War Beast video game against Izuna, alongside Steph and Jabril, whilst Kurumi and Phil spy from the outside to catch the War Beast's cheating tactics. And it's Galgun. I know I'm not the first person to make that comparison, but it's Galgun. It's a shooting game where the targets fall in love with you upon being hit, and their clothes disappear. Oh boy. This is going to be really fun and sexy. This is actually a really exciting game. It felt almost like an action movie sequence to me, with all the chases and gun skills and the back and forth between the two sides, as when it appears that Sora and Shiro gain an advantage, Izuna takes it back by controlling Jabril and supposedly Shiro, but then it's just a trick. Unfortunately, I can't really go into depth about this part because it would just be me giving a synopsis of what happens. Not like I was kind of already doing that. Then Izuna goes into frickin' blood destruction mode, and now it's more like a Dragon Ball fight scene. But then after being completely shafted for the rest of the game, Steph gets the winning shot. Because everyone in the series is a master of calculations. I was confused why the conflict ended so early on into the last episode. I mean, Izuna does learn to have fun again, but that's like a little thing you could put on the end. That was because I did not see them having to play another game! A simple heads or tails of Sora and Shiro versus the Animal Girl Kingdom Priestess. All I can say is that this leads to another moment that I found really funny. The priestess attempts to cheat, but Sora just makes the coin land on its side, and in the background you hear Ino say, "You gotta be shitting me." So with it being a draw, both bets are compromised, and the series ends with Sora and Shiro challenging this god thing that the priestess turns into. I have no idea what that is. Now with me going through the entire series, I more than likely would have to answer the question that comes with the series. Would I like to see a season 2? Yes. I don't know if that will happen, considering it's been almost 4 years and no news, but I'd like to see more of where it goes. I know there's a movie, but I haven't seen it, and even if I did, I would prefer it to have its own separate video. For only being 12 episodes long, I found No Game No Life to have a lot of depth to it after I eventually finished it, because the whole concept, the way it's put into practice in the games are very creative and interesting. I like the themes of the plot in regards to the escapist aspect and how the seemingly weakest race will rise up to become the strongest. Of course, there was a lot of humor that I really liked, and of course, I really liked all of the main characters due to their unique and goofy personalities combined with their interactions with each other. I didn't really think much when going into it all those years ago, but I ended up having a very fun time. It's just a fun time all around, if you can get past the sexual stuff. I wish this series did get more recognition, because while it's not perfect, there are a lot of really good ideas that make it stand out compared to a lot of other anime. If there ever is a season 2 or a spin-off or anything related, I would happily dive right in.